Hello everyone, this is Neha Tulshan from Crescent Creation. Welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. Today I'm sharing my first Halloween card I made for this year using some MFT products. This card is inspired from the movie Hansel and Gretel. The witch, who looks like a normal old lady, attracts kids with all the treats in her hands and the house that's made out of cupcakes. I started with die cutting few trees from the Haunted House Die-namics from MFT using white cardstock, and I also die cut the house using the Tiki Hut Die-namics from MFT. I did not use the house from the Haunted House Die-namics because I liked the hut shape of the house from Tiki Hut Die-namics. Today's card is a bigger card. It's a 5x7" card, as my scene was not really fitting in the regular A2 size card. And here I'm just trimming off the top of the hut die cut to make it a little shorter, as I felt that the hut was too big even for the 5x7 panel. Now let's start with creating the background. Here I'm working on first inking up the sky. Here I'm inking an A2 size panel. While I was working on my 5x7 panel, my camera wasn't turned on, so I decided to ink up an A2 size panel and use it later for any other project. I'm using Fossilized Amber, Ripe Persimmon, Seedless Preserve and Wilted Violet Distress Oxide inks here, and using the mini blending tool I'm going back and forth between the colors to get a good blend. Now to darken up the sky just a little bit, I'm bringing black soot and inking up the top edges and the side, and then I'll go back with the colors again to just make that black color a little lighter. And I just love the look of the overall sky that you get after this. Now I'll ink up the ground. I'm using Antique Linen, Vintage Photo and Ground Espresso Distress Oxide inks here. Since I had a very little space to create the ground here, I started with Antique Linen a little top, which actually covered the yellow, the fossilized amber completely. So here I brought back that fossilized amber and added that beautiful yellow to the sky. Now I'm spritzing some water using my distress sprayer, and I'm gonna blot it dry using a paper towel. I really like the whole background. I love how the whole thing turned out. Now to add to the spooky feel, I am bringing my rolling cloud stencil from MFT and adding some clouds using black soot distress oxide ink. Using my blending brush, I'm very lightly adding the black soot to the sky because I did not want to take away that beautiful sky that we just blended by adding a lot of black to it. Once done, I'll set this panel aside to work on the other elements of the card. Now let's work on the witch's hut. So in the story it says that the witch used to attract kids with a house made of treats, cupcakes, candies, mostly all of those sugary treats that kids like. So for my card today, I decided to use different cupcakes from all the cupcakes stamp set, and here I'm stamping all of the cupcakes randomly on the right side of the hut. Since my cupcakes are overlapping each other, I need to mask away each of the cupcake to stamp another on top of it. You can see I've already created the masks using Simon Says stamp masking paper. So each time I stamp a cupcake image using blackout ink from InkON3, I mask that image and stamp another cupcake, layering it on top of that masked image. So this way I create a layer of cupcakes on the right side of the hut, making it look like as if the house is made out of cupcakes in that site. So idea here I had in mind was that the house was two-faced. The first one was the one that was made out of cupcakes that the kids saw. It was the fake one just to lure the kids in. And if the kids can see beyond all those treats, they would actually see the spooky hut, which was on the left side. Once done, I'll remove all the masks, and I can actually save this mask with my stamp set, and it can be used later in the future. I colored all the cupcakes off camera, and now I'll share how I colored the left side of the hut. All the Copic markers used are listed in my blog post if you want to take a look. Now for the left side of the hut, I really wanted to make it dark, but I still wanted to have that Frenched look that usually the huts have. So here I started with a base layer using W5 Copic marker. At first I used the chisel end of the marker to color the left side of the hut, and then I used the brush tip of the marker to color near the cupcakes. And now I'm bringing my darkest color, which is W9, and I'm adding shadows around the cupcakes and around the house door, and then I'm blending it with the W7 and then W5. I also wanted to add some brown to the hut to give that fringed look, so I'm using my E49 marker and adding those fine lines. And once I've added that E49 marker to the left side of the hut, I'll bring in W9 marker to add a little more dark color. Lastly, I'll come in with E79 Copic marker and go over those grey areas towards the right side of the hut. Once done coloring, I'll add some white highlights to the cupcakes using my Sharpie pen. Here I've stamped the rest of the images that goes on the card using blackout ink from InkON3, and now I'm coloring them using my Copic markers. The stamp sets I used here are Ghostly Greetings, Adorable Adventures and Old Friends. For the pumpkin here, I'm using YR27, YR24 and YR21 Copic markers. I mostly color all my images twice while coloring with Copic markers. Some of them I show on camera and some I don't, to save some time. I've sped up the video here quite a bit because it's gonna be a very long video if I don't. And I'm not doing any fancy coloring here, just following the sketched lines on the images to add shadows and then blending them with the medium and the lighter colors. Today I did make an effort to keep out the caps of all the Copic markers used onto the work surface so that you can take a look, which I usually forget. But there is a reason to it. I don't own all of the Copic sketch markers. Few of them I have the Copic chow markers, and they don't have the marker numbers on top of their caps. And sometimes even with the caps out, you cannot see the colors, the numbers on the caps properly, just because of the camera cannot focus. So to avoid the confusion, I usually add all the numbers of the Copic markers used on the screen. Also, you will see I tried to use similar colors while coloring these images. Since there was a lot going on and the hut already looked so colorful, I did not want to bring more colors and make it look very colorful. At the end of the day, it's a spooky scene that we are trying to build. So I tried to keep a balance by using the same colors I used to color the cupcakes, and then I added few more browns and blues to the scene while coloring these kids. I had this idea in my head for very long, that I wanted to create a Halloween scene like this, but I wasn't sure what products I wanted to use, and how I wanted to do it, how I wanted to show the kids and the house. But then I saw this light up card done by Laura Dovalo. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She's one of the design team members from MFT. She did this amazing spooky card using both Old Friends and Adorable Adventures stamp sets, and that's when I knew I had to use this kids for my Halloween scene, for this idea. Now that the coloring is all done, I'll work on the other elements of the card. And when creating a Halloween scene, you need to have a ghost in your scene. So here I'm gonna heat emboss a ghost image from the Ghostly Greetings stamp set. I'm prepping my surface with my anti-static powder tool. I'm also going to stamp few spider webs onto the left side of the hut using my Simon Says Stamp Embossing Ink. I'm stamping the spider webs, and then I'll stamp the ghost image onto the vellum sheet. Here I'm pouring the white embossing powder onto the stamped image. I'll tap off the excess powder. I have my coffee filter at the bottom to catch the excess powder. I'll keep the hut aside for now and stamp my ghost. Pour the same embossing powder on top of it and then heat set all the images. I also wanted to add some grass to this scene, which I die cut using Lawn Fawn Grassy Border die. I used white cardstock to cut the grass border. And now I'm using Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink to ink up this grass border. Then I brought in black Soot Distress Oxide ink, and using my blending brush, I'm adding some black to the top of the grass border to add that dark feel to it. I also colored the trees using Copic markers off camera. Now that all the elements are ready, I have put them together to see how I want to build my scene. Here, before I forget, I want to stamp the sentiment. I'm using Ghostly Greetings sentiment from the Ghostly Greetings stamp set. I'm stamping it on the top right of the background panel using some black ink. I don't know why I did not think of using my Misty here. I stamped using my acrylic block and I did not get a good impression. That's when I thought, let's heat emboss the sentiment using white embossing powder. It actually worked in my favor. I had a good balance of white going on all over my card, and I really liked the look of white as compared to black. So here I'm trying to line up the sentiment as much as I could, hence my head. But I wasn't really worried about it a lot, because even if the sentiment did not line up, I would have that gray showing up and it would look like a nice shadow to the white sentiment. But I think I made it work. So here I'm gluing my panel, my background panel, to the card base. I have trimmed this panel just a tiny bit from all the four sides, and now I have a nice white border when I place this on my card base. My card base is exactly 5 by 7 inches, which I made using Nina Solar White 110 pound cardstock. I have glued the grass border to the bottom of the card base using some liquid glue. Here I'm gluing the hut, tucking it under the grass border. Now I'm gluing the trees behind the hut. Since I'm using liquid glue, I can move these elements until I'm happy with the placement. The second tree, only a little bit of it can be seen, so I cut off the excess before gluing it to the card base. Now I'll glue the ghost. I added the ghost in such a way as if it's taking a peek at the kids from behind the trees and the hut. Now gluing the rest of the two trees. If you take a look closely, you will see that the color of the trees actually changes as it goes from right to left. It's like everything gets dark and spooky towards the hut. Here I'm gluing the pumpkin just beside the hut, tucking it under the grass. Now for the wooden sign, I stamped the skull which pointed towards the hut. So it's like there were signs for someone who wanted to look beyond the cupcake house. They would see that they are actually heading towards the danger. I stamped the skull twice to get a nice black crisp image, and I glued it to my card panel using some foam tape. I added tape behind the boy and the old lady and glued them to the card panel. I wasn't sure if I wanted to add dimension to the girl, but I ended up adding some to her too. Here I'm gluing candies to the old lady's hand using some liquid glue. I even added a candy to the grass just below the lady to show as if she has a lot of candies. Lastly, adding some bats and spider to the scene. I'm using my jewel pick here to pick up those teeny tiny images. And that's it. My Halloween scene is almost complete. I'll trim off those excess that's hanging off of the card panel, adding few white and black gel pen details all over the card. Lastly, stamping some spider webs and the spider in the inside of the card. I'm trying to make conscious effort to decorate the inside of the cards. And that's it, my card is done. I hope you all liked my card. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Hit the notification bell and get notified every time I upload a video. And also get other updates. I do like to add community posts where I like to add deals from different crafty companies or just the project I'm working on. Thank you for liking and commenting on all my videos. Here are a few more videos that you might be interested in. Thank you for visiting. Have a nice day.